Hello, everybody. Seeing as how you made your way here to the Unseen Encyclopedia YouTube channel, I can only assume that you are on a quest for knowledge, that you seek truth, that you are searching for understanding, for perspective, for clarity, and ultimately for enlightenment. And if for some reason you ended up here and you weren't looking for those things, well, maybe this was just a big happy accident for you, and you'll have a transformative experience even if you weren't looking for it. But I just want to say that it doesn't matter who you are or where you are on this path, if you're on it at all. We're all always going to be on this path, even if we are not aware of it. It is when we come aware of it that we can really start making the most of it. Until then, we are just kind of sleepwalking. But nevertheless, we are all still on it, and this path is infinite. It never ends. Everybody has something to learn at all times. There's always a new stage of evolution for each of us, no matter what, no matter who we are. And, I want to be the first to tell you that I know full well that I have a lot to learn, but this platform, this podcast, is so that I can offer you what I have to offer, so that you may further accelerate and enrich your journey in the yearning and the seeking and the finding of these things, which is ultimately all one thing. Multiple components of the same thing. Enlightenment is just a word for the comprehension of, the understanding of, and the aligning with reality. And when I say aligning with, I mean in our perception, in our behavior, the actions we take. And everybody, it seems in all of these different communities, whether it be the quote unquote spiritual community, or whether it be somewhere in the the truth conspiracy community, enlightenment and spirituality, these words, these realities, they're always so mystified, and they're made out to be much more, I guess you could say, just unattainable and unrelatable than they really are. The truth is that the truth is basically always simple in and of itself. The different facets of certain things that allow for a more comprehensive understanding, they can seem very complex when somebody doesn't understand them. But once understanding has been reached, it becomes very simple to that person. But then to try to explain it to another person and other people, that's difficult, because from their point of view, they don't have the foundational, the prerequisite information, perspective, perception, state of consciousness to be able to understand what you're saying is simple. To them, it sounds complex, and this is the issue. Ultimately, it's not complex, but we're just missing so much of what we need, most of us, that it definitely does appear that way. But here's how we're going to do this. This is obviously the first episode of podcasts that I've ever done. It's never been my style, but I usually am a more, I'm more the guy that stores information and distributes it, that discusses things with people one-on-one. I'm a very one-on-one oriented person. Speaking to an audience has never been something that I was really interested in. I've always found that one-on-one interactions and being able to really connect to another human being is the most efficient way to complete the objective, which is to genuinely help, to genuinely make a difference. But I've gotten to the point now where I figure, why not? And the way this is going to work is there's going to be 2 series of podcasts, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to just include them in one series, and I'm going to be sure to put in the title the distinguishing words that will ensure that you know the difference between one series and another. This series here, I call it the Thought Train podcast, where I just get on the mic and I just start talking. I just go with whatever it is that I'm either thinking or feeling, and I just speak it. And you know, if there's value in that for people, I hope that they listen, that you listen and get the most out of it. If not, I think there's a guarantee that everyone will be able to find value in my more sequential and structured podcast, which is going to be linearly. We will linearly go along, and there'll be an outline that I read from, and there will be a definitive structure there. This is just going to be not me ranting necessarily, this is just going to be my train of thought, which is why I call it the thought train. Even though a lot of it won't be coming from my thoughts per se, a lot of it is just flow state, me just speaking my soul or from my gut. I don't need to think it all through to speak it. Some things I will think through that are more of a complicated and intricate type of scenario or situation or message that I'm trying to convey. But for the most part, I'm just going to be talking and going wherever that train leads me, and hopefully you'll come aboard for the ride and stick with me. Because I promise you, I mean, from my point of view, this might not be true from your point of view, but I promise you from my point of view, I believe that anybody who's listening to this particular series of recordings will be able to benefit greatly from them, because when I get into the flow state of just speaking, I tend to deliver a lot of very valuable insight, and I've done that for people one-on-one, and they have greatly appreciated it, and many of them have encouraged me to do that in this fashion that I'm doing right now. I don't know exactly, I'm not going to have a schedule. This is just, for right now, this is just whenever I feel like it. There won't be a certain day that I release a recording. It's just going to be a matter of when I pick up the mic and record it, and then I will release it, and then people can I'll put it into a playlist, and people can just go and listen to them in order. In terms of the more structured podcast that I'm going to just name after my Instagram account name, Laws of Reality, the Laws of Reality podcast, that will be structured in more of it'll be more like a class where there will be a curriculum, and when you go in order, it will all tie together and make sense. Whereas these Thought Train podcasts, there won't be necessarily any correlation from one episode to the next. There might be, but the odds are unlikely, because I'll be talking about one thing, and then the next recording I'll be talking about something completely else. Whereas the Laws of Reality podcast, there will be a definitive chronological structure there. So I'll let you know when I plan on putting out the first episode of that. I've had an outline together for a while. I've been busy doing other stuff. I haven't gotten around to actually recording that. But I'm finally having some free time now, so I can get around to doing all this. But anyway, so for this first Thought Train podcast, I'm just going to touch on a couple of things about the channel real quick, just because I know that no one's really heard me actually speak on it before. I posted the Plandemic 2 Indoctrination documentary a few weeks ago, I believe. It might have been longer than that now. And that got up to 87,000 views, I think. I think at this moment. And I've had a couple of other videos get a high view count. I have one that's over like 130,000. But the pandemic one really brought in a whole lot of new people to this channel. I went from having like 700 or 800 subscribers or something like that to like 2,500 since then, which I felt like at that number I could release something like this and there would be enough people listening to make it worth it. Although I've always said that as long as I'm reaching one person who genuinely not necessarily needed to hear what I had to say, but just is genuinely listening to what I have to say, and it does truly help them, then that's good enough. If I hadn't been as busy, I would have done this sooner. I wanted to also say for anybody who doesn't know me or who doesn't follow my Laws of Reality Instagram page, that I do something very similar to a researcher named Mark Passio. And if you're subscribed to this channel or you follow the Instagram account, I'm relatively sure you know who that is. But if you don't, for whatever reason, Mark Passio has been not only researching but lecturing on what he has researched and what he has come to understand about the world and the larger picture of reality itself for 15 years at least, probably more than that. What he does is that he offers to take a hard drive that you ship to him and fill it with all of the data and information that he's archived over the years. I do something pretty much just like that, except where he offers around like 2 terabytes. I have 5 or 6, and that's over twice the amount of information. And I'm not as strict about the guidelines that he is, and I don't expect any donations or anything like that. I do it completely for free. All I really ask is that you obviously buy the hard drive, and then pay for just the shipping, and I'll take care of it as long as I can have the shipping and the hard drive cost covered. You just send it to me, or I can buy one for you if you want to send me the money, and I will fill it with all of the information that I have, all of the data, videos, books, audio files, all kinds of stuff. Anything you can think of, really, is probably going to be on there. I think all of it is beneficial. There's obviously levels to it. There's more beneficial content than other content. But I would say over half of it is, a necessary watch or listen or read. And then the rest of it, it's still valuable stuff. And the thing is that so much information, most information is distorted by, inaccuracies or intentional dis or misinformation, or unintentional. It doesn't matter. Everything's so distorted in the world. But I think that no matter how much something may be misleading or the information within it may be incorrect or incomplete, there's always truth in everything. And what I've done with the archives is I've tried to refine everything that I've gathered to be as, true to the truth, as much of a straight line towards the heart of whatever matter is being looked at, the heart of whatever reality is, whether it be the bigger picture reality or a smaller fractalized component. I tried to refine it so that no matter what it is you're looking at, that there's more to be learned and more truth to be understood from it than not. So if you are interested in a hard drive, all you have to do is send me an email, and or you can send me a direct message on Laws of Reality Instagram. I have a website, theunseenencyclopedia.com, and you can email me through that, or you can just find my email, moralityislaw@mailfence.com. You can find the link for that in the YouTube information also. Just contact me through one of those methods. and we'll correspond and we'll figure out, what the details and how we're going to handle all that. All it really is I get the hard drive, I fill it, I format it, and I ship it. It's pretty quick. It won't take a lot of time. With the first few people that I did it with, I was still working out the kinks, and I lost some data, had to recover it, but we're all square now, so it'll be easy. So if you're interested, go ahead and shoot me an email or a direct message on Instagram. Laws of Reality, no spaces. theunseenencyclopedia.com. And I'm going to actually put up a hard drive section on the website. I haven't done that yet, but there is a contact me section. So all you have to do is email me and tell me that's what you want, or just send me an email directly from the link in the YouTube description area, contact area. I just wanted to get that out of the way. I think that what I've created with that is extremely beneficial and rich, with beneficial information, data, content. I think it's indispensable. I think that you really can't put a value on it. I mean, it could take somebody a decade to go through all that information, depending on their pace. So it's just, I'm very proud of it. I worked very hard on it. I wouldn't have come up with the idea if it weren't for Mark Passio first. He came up with the idea initially. I mean, I'm sure there's been others before him, but I mean, it's a very simple idea. Just archive information and then, give it to people so people don't have to do all the work you did. And from my point of view, it's like I've been down the rabbit hole. I've been down all the rabbit holes. I mean, or at least enough of them to understand, to come out the other side and understand, what's important, what's really important, and to try to filter out all the bullshit so you don't have to waste your time doing that. I know it wasn't wasted time, but you know what I'm saying. I just don't want people to have to go through all that like I did. It's not worth it. It should be much easier to access the more relevant, pertinent information rather than have to sift through all the bullshit. And there's so much bullshit, I'll tell you what. I mean, like I said, just even in the stuff that's really not bullshit, that's mostly, valid and accurate and valuable, there's still bullshit in it. And, that's where your discernment's going to have to come in. I can't do that for you. Even in the best of things, there's always going to be things that you're not going to agree with, or that it doesn't resonate with you as truth. It just doesn't fit. And I found that that's the case pretty much in anything, even in something that's 99% accurate and relevant and valid. There's always that 1% or or less or more. It's always there though. I mean, because human beings, we're just inherently flawed. In this way, we cannot be 100% perfect on everything, on anything really. I mean, you can come very close, but ultimately it's just not possible. But that's okay. It means that we always have something to learn and we always can improve, and that is the truth. I mean, there is an infinite journey of learning and improvement, and no one is exempt. Everyone is on this path and will be forever. Like I said before, whether they are aware of it or not, whether they're making the most out of it or not, they're on it, and eventually they will realize it. And everybody is different in this regard. I'm just here to try to help people make the most out of it, to really become aware of it, to really become aware of things that they may have never been aware of otherwise if they hadn't heard me. I think every single person has something to offer that no one else can. So in no way am I saying I am like I'm an anomaly in that regard. Everybody can offer something that somebody else can't, that nobody else can't. But I do think that what I have to offer is far more valuable than most. I think most people are just so asleep, for lack of a better term, or so lost in some delusion, in their bias, in their trauma, in their agenda, whatever it is. And I've always prided myself on putting aside completely my anything, when it comes to me and what I, think, or my opinion. What my opinion is doesn't matter in my eyes. The only thing that matters is what is objectively true for both you and me, for everybody. And how the subjectivity factors into that, because it's important, because obviously in the objective reality that we all share, we each have our own subjective consciousness, our own subjective perception and perspective of and on that reality. So obviously it's important, but I think that one of the principal tenets of enlightenment is aligning our subjective perception to that objective reality as much as we can without giving up what makes us us. And I think that's the balance there, is to make sure that we retain and embrace and understand who we are as individuals, but to be sure that we align as closely as possible to the objective reality that we exist in, and how it works, how it really works. We have to understand that as clearly and as in depth as possible. I mean, like I said, the truth is simple, yes, but how everything connects together, until it's very firmly understood, it is very intricate, even when it is understood, it's still very complex, especially in terms of putting it into words that somebody else can understand, and that's why it's so important when you're doing anything like a podcast or a lecture, or a series of whatever it is, anything educational, that you have a very well thought out outline, so that while you're articulating all of these different facets of reality and how they all interconnect, that you're not losing people, by the droves, that you're not confusing people. This is important. And I mean, ultimately, whether they understand you and what you're saying is on them, but you can either make it a lot easier or a lot harder. And we might as well make it as easy as we can if we're going to be in this position where we are doing that, where we are, giving our dissertation, our insight. It must be given in a way that is universally understood, even if not everybody understands it. It's only on you to a certain extent, but to that extent, we need to to embrace that responsibility, and then they have to embrace theirs as the receiver, as the listener, as the student. I mean, I've never liked the student-teacher thing, because all of us are each students and teachers in one way or another. But like I said, in this particular platform, in this particular way, I am speaking to you and you are listening. So therefore, in this case, you are the student and I am the teacher. But like I said, we are all students and teachers of each other in life, ultimately. All right, now that all that is out of the way, what I want to talk about now for the remainder of this recording is fiction, specifically the Amazon Prime show that is called Utopia. There was a original version of this show that was made in the United Kingdom maybe 7 years ago, and they have Americanized it. And I'll tell you what, with fiction, it is hit or miss, and there's really no in between. Now, anything can be learned from, whether it's the lowest of the low level of consciousness that's being put in to the fiction, or the highest. You can always learn. The entire spectrum of existence is there for you to learn from. But I mean, when we're talking about objectively enlightening and high quality fiction, it is hit or miss. And especially with Hollywood. Okay, Hollywood is 90 to 95% garbage. I mean, let's just say it how it is. And then you have that 5 to 10%, and the 5 to 10% is kind of in its own spectrum, where you have, it's good enough, it has enough value to where it's worth your time. And then you have the really rare stuff that is a must see, a must watch. And Utopia, this 2020 version of Utopia, is a must watch. I have not watched the 2013 UK version. I might do that when I have some time. But all I know is that irregardless of what that is like, this 2020 version is it's truly unbelievable. I mean, there's just so much unbelievable stuff going on here. The overall message, the individual messages that are being conveyed here, because you have the overall message, and then you have the other themes that are layered throughout. I mean, it's truly something else, and it's so crazy just because of the timing of when it was written, when it was filmed, and when it was released in this 2020 joke that we're watching unfold right now. The show, I recorded something earlier, and I spoiled a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to do that, I decided. I'm just going to highlight the most important aspects of what the show is communicating, and I'll try to avoid, too much spoilery stuff, but it's kind of hard not to spoil certain things, no matter how I go about this. So if you don't want it spoiled for you at all, if you want to go in to it with knowing nothing, go ahead and turn this off and go and watch it. It's 8 episodes. Each episode's about 45 to 50 minutes. So, I mean, you're talking about you can look at it as a really long movie, but I assure you that it is worth it. And it's like I say about all fiction. I mean, anything really, for that matter. You're not going to agree with everything that they assert in any of the episodes, but that's not the point. It's not there for you to have 100% agreement with. Nothing really is. There is just so much there that is, I mean, it's just unbelievable in relation to what we are experiencing and watching right now. I mean, it is incredible. So go ahead and go watch it, or if you don't care, if you know you're not going to watch it and you just want to hear, what's up with it, continue to listen, and I'll explain it. But Utopia is essentially a show that at its core is attempting to convey that we are destroying the world, that humanity is a plague, a virus, so to speak. The main figure that would represent the antagonist to the average person is essentially Bill Gates. He is a imitation of Bill Gates. He's like a poor man's Bill Gates. I mean, in almost every way, it's insane. It's so on the nose that you can't get it twisted by any means. This guy Bill Gates essentially holds the view of humanity that Agent Smith does in the Matrix, to a certain degree anyway. I mean, when he talks about how humanity is just this plague that is just destroying the earth, and everything that he does is for the earth and for its future. Although he claims that he loves people, especially children, even though he's willing to kill them. It's fascinating stuff. The guy's entire philosophy is, how much evil do you have to do in order to do good? That's like a quote from the show, which is fascinating in and of itself. And he has a point. But it's incredible. Okay, so, and because of the fact that humanity is this plague, we need to be cold. That is the idea here. Now, how it relates so much to 2020, aside from the Bill Gates fixation, it all has to do with viruses. There's a comic book, a series that is for public consumption that's been around for several years, and it's called Dystopia. And this comic, it is full of different viruses and pandemics and things that actually transpired in reality. And there's of course a much more to it than that. At first you think that it's just a solely fictional conduit to attempt to inform the reader of these viruses and pandemics that are released. But as it turns out, a lot more is actually happening in real life than just the viruses. And basically, there's another comic book that was never made for public consumption, or it was never made public. It was probably intended to be for public consumption by the person who wrote it, but it wasn't. Up until this point, some couple who's about to get married moved into a new house and found it because it was one of their parents' old house, and he had this comic book in his possession, and they found out that there was a online cult following for this Dystopia comic book. And I guess there was like a hint in the comic book that said that there was another book out there that nobody knew where it was, and they knew it was called Utopia, and that's the name of this comic book. And the show focuses on six, I guess, main characters, 5 to start with. And they are just like, fanboys, fangirls of the Dystopia comic to varying degrees of awareness of what it actually is. You got one guy who is just a complete, like a tinfoil hat stereotype, where it's just conspiracy central. His entire worldview revolves around the conspiracy cult, your culture, because that's what it is. It's a cult at this point. I mean, people just are obsessed and buy into everything they see, and that's what this guy's like. I mean, he's got a full-blown bunker with 2 fucking years of food and everything. He's that guy, right? And it's funny because one of the minions in the show that he comes in contact with, he tells him, it's like, these French string beans aren't gonna save you, buddy. And he's right. It's crazy. There's just this raging imbalance in every sector of humanity, where you have people who don't look into anything at all ever and are just completely obedient, brain dead drones, right? Who just believe whatever they're told by their authority figures and their television. And then you have these guys who just go completely off the deep end and value their lives so much that they think that their lives are worth an entire bunker and stockpile of food, etc. That the end of the world is going to look like something where they can just hide beneath ground from everything that's going on the surface. And both sides make people like myself, who are in the middle, look batshit crazy, or, I mean, especially the people who go completely overboard with everything. But the people who don't look into anything, I mean that's the mass majority of people. I guess they don't really make me look any certain way. They just, I mean, they don't look at all. You know, they don't elicit any behavior that can make me look like anything. It's the people who go completely off the deep end that are part of the problem, the reason why all of the brain dead zombies don't look in anything, because they see those people as just complete whack jobs, and then they lump somebody like myself in with them, and you know, I resent that. I resent that greatly. But you know, it is what it is. And in this group of people, he's that guy. And then you have a chick who she's probably the smartest and probably has the most balanced worldview. She's the one who fully understands that the comic book is conveying real viruses and pandemics and things of that nature. And she's not completely obsessed with, you know, conspiracies. She understands that they exist. She's very rational about it. She's got a couple of great lines. One of them, she's talking to her dad, and he says, you know, why don't you just go to a rally and make that your good deed? And she says, rallies are a joke. You know, they don't work, because all they're there for is to make people feel like they're making any sort of meaningful difference. It's there so people can go, like he said, do their feel good deed, make themselves feel better, and then go home and have their GMO meal and go to sleep. That's what rallies are for. And she's absolutely right about that. And that is part of the, you know, the conspiracy, for lack of a better word, to give people that feeling that they're doing something when they're really doing absolutely nothing. And then she has another great line where she goes to this, they all go to this like pseudo Comic Con to try to get their hands on this Utopia comic, because the couple who found it is going to sell it there. And she encounters these fucking, I mean, you think her and her friends are fangirls. These people are just pathetic that she encounters. They are completely obsessed with the fictional. I mean, to them, it's completely unreal. There's nothing real about it. It's all just about the mythology and the lore, and all of that is more real and valuable to them than reality. But in the first place, because that's their escape. That's how they cope with their meaningless lives. But they have no idea that any of the shit in the comic book is real, but they treat it like they treat the fiction, the lore, as it is real. And she's under no impression that like anything other than the viruses are real. Like any of the characters in the comic book, she doesn't see them as real. She sees them as, you know, metaphors. And this is the line that she has about it. She says that, you know, this is not meant to be taken seriously in the context of its fictional nature. It's meant to be something that we apply to ourselves. We put ourselves in the shoes of the characters so that we can learn from their fictional experience, so that we can take what we learn from that and apply it in our lives. It's all about the artist is inspiring the reader, the viewer, to do something in their life that's meaningful, that will make a difference, not to obsess over the character and the character's actions and what it's doing. And that's what she tells him. You know, it's not about obsessing over characters doing something, fictional characters doing something. It's about us doing something. And that, my friends, is what fiction is all about. I mean, when it's used in the most benevolent, beneficial way possible, the intentions are in that vein. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to inspire the viewer, the reader, the watcher to take action in their own life. It is trying to incite and catalyze insight, an awakening, you know, a certain degree of enlightenment, realization, and taking that and implementing it In reality, that's what fiction is. That's what it is at its most benevolent level. And I know it's called the Thought Train Podcast, but I don't want to deviate too far. All I'm going to say for right now is that 90 to 95% of the fiction that's out there, it is designed to further, what's the word I'm looking for here? It is designed to build upon and amplify the already existing mind control that the average viewer is under, whether it be through the propaganda and the agendas that the individual artist may have, or what the artist's master has, right? And that's what it unfortunately has become in a society where everything is consolidated down to, a few corporations that all have the same basic agenda because they're all controlled by the same people. And it's pathetic what's happened to fiction. And like I said, even in that case, you can learn. You can. It's possible, obviously. It doesn't matter, what it really is. You can learn from it. Like I said, even the lowest of the low, you can absolutely learn from it. But in the sense of what fiction is today, it's just a perpetuator of ignorance. It is a reinforcer of mind control. It is there to get you to further believe in something that is detrimental to yourself and other people, or to buy into something that is detrimental. It's all about whether or not the viewer is able to discern. That's what it comes down to, discernment. And most people cannot discern, their left ass cheek from their right ass cheek. So, how can you expect them to discern what they're watching on a screen or in a book? You can't, and they know that. And that's why it's a multi-billion, $100 billion industry, because they know the power of it over the minds of people who have no real levels of consciousness and discernment. So when you're talking about people with this very low level of consciousness and discernment, which is most people, you are talking about people who, when they are watching the film or the show, their attention is fully turned outward towards what they're watching and completely away from their own thought faculties or their own awareness of self. They are completely absorbed into what they are watching. And this is how you access the subconscious of the mind, which makes up 90% of people's minds. And this is how you can reinforce, or depending on, if you're talking about a child, reinforcement for adults mostly. But there's always, new ideas or the evolution of ideas to be introduced into the adult mind. But for children, this is how you build the foundation of certain things, certain ideas, certain perceptions that you want them to have, is through this. Because children, it's not because they're just asleep zombies that they are so absorbed into the film. That's just the way that their young minds work. They're just so captivated and mesmerized by what they're seeing. And this is how you engineer the overall perception of people from the time they're young all the way through adulthood. And this is the other facet of the whole weaponization of fiction is that when you convey reality, the truths of reality in fiction, you are associating reality, truth, with fantasy, with unreality in the minds of the unconscious, whether they be children or adults. And so, here's the thing about it. These artists who write and direct and produce these films and shows, in the world that we live in, fiction is the only real way to convey profound and meaningful aspects of reality and truths. Because doing so, in real life, so to speak, is suicide. I mean, not just for your career, possibly, but for your actual life. It's happened. So, this is the thing about it. It's like I talk to people a lot, and they'll tell me, well, how can something be benevolent if it's allowed to be in a Hollywood film? That's going to make hundreds of millions, billions of dollars, and is wiring most people's minds to associate what they're seeing, regardless of how profound or true it is, with fantasy. And, on some level, they're absolutely right. Because most people are going to watch these things, no matter how good they are, and have their mind programmed to associate what they're watching with anything but reality in their lives. But this is what I'm saying about artists and how they only have one medium to convey what they know, and that is fiction. So, and like for me personally, so much fiction has impacted me in the most incredible and profound and beneficial ways. It's astounding. But I'm not like most people. I'm a very aware, self-aware, worldly aware person. So when I watch fiction, it's a completely different experience for me than it is for 95% of people, at least. It's the definition of a rock and a hard place situation, because I truly do believe that a lot of these people in Hollywood do have good intentions. They are trying to communicate with the audience. They are desperately trying to, scream at them and get them to wake up to something, to various degrees. And it's the only way they can do it, without, because even if they go out and, if you go out in public and start saying the stuff they're conveying in movies, they will be just looked at as, oh, she's on another drug binge, she's lost it, etc. There's just that public perception. That's what I'm saying. There's this schism in the public mind where they can go watch a film and see all the same ideas and things conveyed to them that I'm talking about somebody doing in real life. And in real life, they'll call that person a whack job, insane, just doing too many drugs, etc., 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 mentally ill. But then they go watch the movie, like, oh, that was so awesome, that was so cool. All those ideas and visuals, and oh, it was so great. This is how it works in people's minds, and this is what they've been engineered to be like. This is how they have been engineered to perceive. And it's tough. And that's what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this so I can, help however many people listen to try to understand what's really going on here. And so that they maybe can help people in their life understand. That's all I'm trying to do here, because it's just, the waters are so murky and muddy, and people's levels of discernment are so low. and consciousness are so low that it's impossible for people to be able to see things clearly. I mean, when I talk about discernment, I'm really just talking about whether or not what they're being told is beneficial or detrimental. I wasn't even really talking about this facet of it, which is that in terms of relating to reality, and how reality being conveyed through fiction makes reality seem like fantasy. This is a whole nother can of worms. Because when people are under this such fierce and all-permeating mind control, where reality to them is just this mundane loop, this construct that is set in stone in a certain way, and then they go watch, Star Wars, and they're being talked to about the Force and this all permeating cosmic power that envelops all of existence, and like all of these themes of true development and enlightenment and conquering the lower aspects of ourselves. I mean, all this stuff is just awe inspiring. It's just like, it's mesmerizing. It's not teaching them. They're viewing it through this fanatical lens, because their perception of reality is so distorted and is so rooted in the mundane patheticness that is our reality, that all of this, to them, extraordinary stuff that they're seeing on the screen, it's just an escape. It's just to give them something that they can go to, so that reality is a little less boring. That's what movies and shows have become for people, is just a way to escape their daily loop grind life for a few hours and experience something that they know deep within themselves is truly profound and amazing, so they can go right back to the completely mundane and pathetic right afterwards. I mean, this is what pretty much every distraction is all about. It's all about playing on the depths of people for a little while, getting them to tap into their essence, the deepest parts of themselves, in the most surface level and meaningless ways. I mean, if sports are a great example, people can get so excited and care so much about nothing, but it's such a contrast from their daily life, and this is how people deal with it. And it doesn't matter what you're talking about, whether it's the dabbling in drugs, or the watching of sports, or gluttonous eating, or watching movies. It doesn't matter. It's all there for the same function. It's all there to accomplish the same objective, just in slightly different ways. But I know I got way off track, but that's the point of this podcast. It's just, it's just, I don't know, it's just so crazy, because I see what the artists are trying to do. The ones who are really conveying things that are completely consciousness altering, life changing. And of course, I see all the malevolence in most of Hollywood. That's not really that's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about that 5 to 10% that is worth one's time. Anybody's time. Even the people who will be probably more mind controlled by it. It really comes down to having somebody who can explain what's really going on. And that's what I'm trying to do here. And I know that most people who listen to this aren't going to be people who are completely brain dead. And now, after listening to this, we'll see fiction through a whole new light. I mean, that's not what I expect. I guess what I'm expecting here is to further enlighten those who are already well along their way towards becoming more and more enlightened. And so, if I can help improve those people's perceptions of fiction and reality in general, then they can take that enhanced perception and maybe do that for the people who are close to them that may be more of that average, ordinary variety that have no idea what they're watching and are just being programmed at every turn. Or maybe they can do the same for the people who are along the way in their life who won't come across this podcast. That's my intention here. But I got away from Utopia. I can't remember exactly where I was at, but I was talking about how one of the main characters fully understood what I was talking about here, that fiction is supposed to be perceived so that the viewer can take what they know is fiction, what they know is just a script being acted out and projected on a screen in order to better themselves, to learn, and to put what they learn into place in their life, into action. That's what the benevolent nature of fiction is all about. Inspiration, true learning, insight, the catalyzation of certain degrees and elements of awakening so that reality can be changed. That's what fiction, that's what it is at its core. It's just, like I said, in the world we live in, it's just been completely weaponized and perverted to do basically the exact opposite. It is changing the world, but for the de-evolution of our human experience in society. That's the thing. That's the nature of duality. Everything's a double-edged sword. You can use simple, but you can use a knife to cut up some food to make it easier to eat, or you can stab somebody. You can use a car to travel and make a difference somewhere, or you can use it to kill someone. It's just, this is how it works. Anything can be used as a tool for the greater benefit of people or for the further detriment. And that's the nature of it. That's the nature of basically anything and everything. But alright, Utopia. So I don't want, like I said, I don't want to spoil too much. I don't want to go into too much detail because I'm not here to tell you the story. I'm here to tell you what the story is trying to convey. So there's so much here, right? There's so many different things being touched on. You're getting the very message that the fiction that you're watching is there right now, that you're seeing in front of you, is there to try to get you to learn something and to take what you learn and do something with it that is beneficial to you and other people. That is what is being said here in these quotes. Not go to some rally either. That was a strong message. Rallies, protests, they're just there to make you feel better. Okay, so these are the first messages of the first episode I'm talking about. We're not even getting into the other stuff that I've been saying about the viruses and the human plague. And the sad part is that with characters like that is what humanity has been reduced to. It is just a plague. It doesn't have to be, but that is what it's become. And it's partly due to the fact that guys like Bill Gates and their ancestors and their partners have engineered humanity to be this way to a certain degree. I mean, obviously you cannot place the blame on them at all, really. I mean, you can if you want, but you're just kidding yourself. The responsibility is on humanity, no matter how you look at it. But the facilitation and the perpetuation of the state of humanity and its level of awareness and where it is just overall is, of course, a factor. And it is done by these people. I mean, Bill Gates is he's just a pawn. He's not some mastermind. But they use this character in the show to just, I mean, because Bill Gates is tangible, He's become a meme in terms of being a eugenicist. So, like, they just use that as their method to convey what they're trying to convey, and that's fine. But anyway, yeah, she tells those nerds what's up, and a lot. This is where it starts to get wild. Like I said, I won't spoil anything too in depth. You should really just go watch the show. That makes it easier. Let's say a lot of people get killed. Okay? And the killers, they are just, they are minions of this Bill Gates character. And they've just essentially been trained their whole life to be this. They are like MyLab, MK Ultra representations. And they call it home, they call headquarters their headquarters. And they ask headquarters to run the names of these people who they're going to kill for mental illness. And this is just one of the crazy things that they try to convey in the show, that in this specific example, shootings, killings, mass killings, it's always somebody with mental illness, right? In the media, somebody who's been on psychoactive drugs. And so they go around and kill all these people, and there's one guy on the list that has a history of mental illness, and they pin it on him, all these murders. And they're just blatantly out in the open telling you that these things are state-sponsored operations in reality most of the time. Whether or not it's the person who they use as the patsy who is actually the killer physically pulling the trigger, it's irrelevant. It's all state-organized, state-sponsored, domestic terrorism. And that's what they're trying to tell you here, is that these two guys who essentially work for the powers that be in this metaphor, they go around and murder all these people, and then they pin it on some dude who's been to the psychiatric ward one too many times and who's been on medication, who is, probably not the most stable person in the world, but would never kill anybody. He's just minding his own business. And this is just an example of one of the things that they're trying to tell you in the show. And this is a minor one, really, in the broad scope of it. And then down the line, there's somebody within the organization that doesn't agree with what they're doing in this next phase of their plan. She doesn't agree that sacrificing children in order to further an agenda is okay. Well, I guess only to a certain extent was she okay with it. And then I guess she reached her line that wasn't going to get crossed. And so, instead of doing what they were originally going to do, because she is now considered a a dissident and a threat to the agenda, they just go ahead and wipe her and her family out. And how do they do it? They take the DNA of somebody who they need to be wanted so that they can find him easier, and they use basically an actor to go in and leave evidence and show himself on video cameras, and then they have somebody else kill the whole family, her and her whole family. And then you know, of course, you have like an hour later, you have the news announcing to the world that this person that they're hunting is now, you know, the youngest mass shooter in history, and his face and name are all over the news, just like that. This is just another example. The theme, one of the most overarching themes in the show, is that nothing is what it seems. The appearances, how things seem to be, it's never what it is, actually, to one degree or another. That's what there are always levels to this, but like in this case, this kid was nowhere near the site of the killings. This was just completely staged, orchestrated. Now, the deaths were real. That's what I'm saying. See, like, usually the common theme when using violence in order to incite some sort of public response or the insertion of a narrative into the media, the deaths are almost always real. I mean, I promise there are examples where people didn't really die. It was just fully staged. People think that, like, Sandy Hook, for example, was an example of that. I don't think so. I really don't. I think that that whole thing was put out there to make the idea that it was being used for agendas seem nuts. To associate any sort of alternative thinking on the matter as batshit crazy. I think that's what that was all about. I think that's why Alex Jones was dispatched to make that a thing. But anyway, just another example of how nothing that's put out there is what you think it is, what you're told it is, what you're presented. And this was crazy. They use a kid. You know, they use a poor fucking kid. They didn't force him to kill them. They had the adult operative do it, but it doesn't matter. Use the kid to plant evidence to pretend to be somebody else so that a family can die because they didn't agree that other kids should die. This is what I'm saying. This is how it works. This is how it works, folks. And they're trying to tell you. They're screaming. But of course, most people, when watching it, they will not... Their minds are so dissociated and so absorbed in the fantasy land that that's all they're associating it with, is the fictional tale in which they're viewing. And this is the running theme throughout the show. It's just nothing is what it seems. Everything is a deception. And when you couple that along with the idea that humanity is just this monstrosity that needs to be purged, you have a very interesting premise, and the unfolding of events is just incredible. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say all this without going too crazy. So you have, because there's so many details that are necessary in order to really understand what's happening. This is why I just suggest you go watch it. And if you don't have Amazon Prime, I have a link for you that you can watch it for free. I will put that in the description. But in direct relation to 2020, because everything that I've covered so far, I touched on the viruses and that that relation to 2020 and everything. But like, I'll get into it here. So basically, what happens is that this flu starts breaking out in children in small areas across the country. And there's this doctor who discovered this flu a long time ago in another country, and he's fucking baffled as how it is now in the United States and spreading so quickly. And so basically this guy is just being used by this Bill Gates guy. And he doesn't know that. He thinks that it's all, an organic thing that's occurring. And again, this is just another example. And this goes to the heart of the show, though, in terms of the tying in between the state of humanity, the deception of humanity, and the virus idea narrative. This virus was purposefully unleashed, okay? So I just want to say this real quick in relation to reality. Quote unquote COVID-19, I won't sit up here and say that it doesn't exist. I don't see any evidence for it, but I won't say that it doesn't exist because I don't know. But what I do know, and what we all should know by now, is that COVID-19 it's not even as deadly as the seasonal flu, and this is known now by people who aren't brain dead. The difference between reality and the show is that this virus that is killing children is very deadly and it's apparent. There are physical symptoms that are consistent that can be seen that differ from the flu or any other virus. That's the difference here. So I'm absolutely convinced that if COVID-19 actually is a thing, SARS-CoV-2, it was released on the public. Now, whether they thought it was going to be more dangerous than it is, or it was meant to be this way so they could just use the media to essentially see if they could use the media alone, words, to get people to do everything that they've done in the last 8 months, which they have. That's what I'm saying. It's like it's just so fucking stupid. Like, to even talk about whether it was released intentionally or not, it feels so pathetically silly, considering that it kills less people than the flu. I mean, it's just pathetic. But anyway, this virus is very deadly in the show. And it is intentionally released. And I guess I'm just going to have to spoil this. So if you don't want to know, stop listening, go watch it. This virus is released so that this doctor who found it will come with the vaccine. He has a vaccine that was made in response to what he found several years back in Peru. And so he's supposed to come out with this vaccine and essentially convince the public that they should line up and give their arms for this vaccine. Does this sound familiar? But here's the thing. In the context of the show, This is crazy. I'm just going to get into, because this is where it gets really good, so I am just going to spoil these things here. He comes in to this little city that's been quarantined, of course. They're on complete lockdown. Families can't access the ones that are in the lockdown. And he meets this girl who supposedly has this virus, and, this dad, her dad, supposedly, who's just, losing his mind because his daughter's dying, and he was stuck on the outside for a while, but he managed to get him in. And now they're there. And, he's supposed to give her the vaccine to see if it works. But, of course, she doesn't actually have the virus. But then she's given the virus. Intentionally, on some wafer. Given the virus. And then, so he gives her the vaccine. But it turns out she's got a twin sister that they're using. They kill her. They let her die from the virus. And then they replace her with their twin sister to make the doctor think that he cured her from this virus with his vaccine. So now he's convinced that it's the miracle cure to this virus that he's convinced is organic, that wasn't released, that was just, it just broke out somehow. This is his mindset. So now he goes in front of the media and declares that he's got the cure, that we need the vaccine now, blah, 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 just as how they intended, right? But here's the thing, okay? Now, I'm not really spoiling, you know, there's so much detail in the show. I'm not spoiling everything, but I'm spoiling enough to have you understand. Embedded in this vaccine that Bill Gates' company is producing, because they technically own it, because the doctor was working under a university that gets all their funding from his company, and so they own this vaccine. And embedded in the vaccine is another virus. Okay. Embedded in this vaccine that's going to be administered to every man, woman, and child across the world is the plan. Just like Bill Gates says, the whole world has to be vaccinated. There's a virus embedded in this vaccine for this virus that they unleashed, okay? So this is where it really ties into reality, because this is what's being pushed. Vaccines. Got to get vaccinated for COVID. At least in the show, the virus that they're vaccinating for is deadly, and very apparently deadly. You know, biological weapon or not, at least it's deadly. COVID-19, the fact that I can sit here and suggest that it might not even exist is a perfect testament to its non-deadliness. But this vaccine has this new virus in it. And this virus, this is the big spoiler, so if you don't want to know, turn it off. This virus is a sterilization virus. There will not be human procreation for 3 generations because of this virus that's embedded in this vaccine for the virus that was released on the public. All in order to get people to give over their arms so that they can be sterilized. Listen, now whether you agree that humanity should be culled or sterilized is irrelevant. I don't, you know, this is not what I'm here to discuss. Humanity is indeed beyond the pale in really every way. Does that mean that they should be culled and sterilized? You know, up for debate. But the real central theme here is that this is all being done through deception, manipulation, and completely without their knowledge. That's my point. Humanity is being deceived on levels that cannot be comprehended, and they are spelling it out for you in, you know, it is a Hollywoodized way to a certain degree, but they're spelling it out for you, and it directly relates to where we're at right now. And that's what's so crazy about this show. It is unbelievable. I mean, this show was written at least a couple of years before any of this started. Filmed before it was started, during it, and now debuted a couple of weeks ago. I mean, what do you think about that? Just the sheer nature of the timing by itself. I mean, people really need to watch this who are aware, so that they can show other people and give them the lens to see it through they need to be able to understand. This is why I'm making this. I mean, because listen, I believe in what humanity is at its core, which is just an expression of the consciousness that has created and makes up the universe and reality, okay? But in their current state, I mean, no, humanity does not need to be producing children at a rate that will increase the population exponentially year after year. That's an objective fact, no matter how you want to look at it. What we need to be doing is focusing on what we have right now and making it optimal. And then we can talk about having more children. But this doesn't mean that they need to be sterilized against their will. And well, that's the thing, it's not against their will, right? But it's without their knowledge. But they're lining up for it, and that's what deception is. That's the whole point here. They're being deceived into doing something that they wouldn't do if they knew that's what they were doing. But because they don't, because they're too dumb and they're able to be deceived, it is completely in their own free will, giving up their arm. They don't know what's in it. Trust. That's what I'm saying, you know. People today with the COVID-19. Oh, I need the vaccine. You have no fucking idea what's in it. This is a vaccine. I mean, listen. This is a vaccine that won't even go through a year of genuine vetting. People don't trust vaccines that go through the full 10, 20 years of vetting and testing. Rightfully so. And these people are just going to line up for this Frankenstein cocktail, all because they are so desperate for things to return to normal. Well, I got news for you. There's no more normal as you knew it. They're not calling it the new normal for no reason. The old normal is gone. The old world order is gone. The new world order normal is here. And that's it. If we change it, which doesn't look too bright right now. But this is the point. You've got the whole central idea that humanity is just being deceived in mass on levels that cannot really be comprehended by most. And then you mix that in with the 2020 circus, the timing of it, and how it directly relates to a mind control operation that has to do with a virus. Whether it's real or not is irrelevant. A mind control operation that has to do with the virus, a virus, that is used to create a demand for a vaccine. People lining up to get shot with a vaccine. I mean, that's what we know for sure. We don't know what's going to be in the vaccine that they'll be rolling out. But the suggestion of the show is quite fascinating. I mean, you're talking about global sterilization. And as I said, whether you agree or disagree, it does not matter. The point is that this is the message, is that it's being done without the knowledge of the people who are being sterilized. Not against their will, because they are stupid enough, trusting enough to get that shit injected into their arm to be sterilized. But it is without their knowledge. This is what needs to be understood. Humanity is being led off the cliff. And they think that they're going to paradise. They think that everything's going to be okay, that we're all going to go back to normal. We're all going to be saved from the engineered crisis that has been designed and unleashed. And that is the message of this show. In a nutshell. I mean, like I said, then like you got all the other stuff about framing people for mass shootings who have mental illness. You know, making people guilty who just need to be put in the public eye so they can be found because they're a threat. And there's so much more. This is what I felt was the most important. There's so much more going on in the show, especially when you know all the details. And that's why I think it's so important that you watch it. I think listening to this and then watching it would be very beneficial, even though you know some of the things that are going to happen because I told you. But now you'll be completely aware of those things, not just seeing them for the first time, and you can focus on the other stuff that you don't know about and tie it all together, and you'll come out with a very clear understanding of what's being told to you and what you can do with that in your own consciousness and with other people. That's why I'm doing it. I think it's extremely beneficial. But I think I touched on fiction and the nature of it, how I wanted. I talked about all of its dimensions and, you know, the dichotomy between artists and the nature of society in Hollywood. I think I got that across. And I think I covered the show as much as I wanted to without going into too much detail. But man, I mean, it really floored me. And like I don't say that very often about much of anything in this world, because everything is just so generally pathetic and predictable and sad, no matter where you're looking. But there are, I mean, in Hollywood, I'll tell you what, there are those 15 to 20 shows or so that some of them are just masterpieces, beautiful works of art that are truly enlightening. And though I'd say those are about 5 to 10 of them. And you got another 5 to 10 that are very worth watching, very valuable, but not quite as powerful, I would say. I'd put Utopia just because of, like I say, just because of the context of it, the relation that it has to our world right this moment, the timing of it, the fact that it was written and mostly filmed before any of this happened, the fact that there's a 2013 version that I assume is at least relatively similar, that was made, 7 years ago in a different country. I mean, it's just insane. How do people rationalize this? How do people explain it? I can't even explain it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if this is like by design or if it's just a fucking happy accident. Jesus, I don't know. It's not the point, but it's crazy either way. No matter how you slice it, it's like if it's done on purpose, if it's all done on purpose, is predictive programming, timing, association with fantasy. That's fucking insane. It needs to be known. But if it's just a fucking coincidence, which I don't believe in, but coincidences are just a word for something that isn't properly understood, so that it can't be explained by the person. But if it's just a quote-unquote accident, that's insane also, because it's not an accident. It appears to be one, but it's not. So it doesn't matter how you slice it. That's just, it's nutty. The whole thing is nutty. And it's cool to me that I can still have my mind blown at this stage, because I've just had it blown so many times, and I've gotten to this point where things just don't really faze me anymore, that when they still can, I don't want to say I enjoy it, because I really don't. Like, at the core of it, I really don't, just because of the circumstances that we're in. It's not something that should be enjoyed. But I have to say that it is enjoyable to be able to still be floored like that. And there's always something that will be able to do that for you, no matter how much you think you know or anything. That's why I said at the beginning, we're all students of life forever. And we will each serve as student and teacher to other people in that classroom of life. And that is an eternal, infinite journey. So it's just very cool to have it happen to you and to be able to appreciate it in the moment. But yeah, fiction, it's just to name the shows that I'm talking about, in case you don't know or haven't heard or haven't seen them. Mr. Robot, first and foremost. It's my favorite show of all time. And it's an absolutely must watch. These are all must watches. You can find that on Amazon Prime also. But I have a link that has basically every show or movie you can think of, and I'll put that in the description, like I said. And then you have American Gods. That's a Stars show. Westworld on HBO. Lost, which I'm sure most people will at least know the name of. That might be my second favorite. It's 1A and 1B with Mr. Robot and Lost. Truly profound in different ways, but both, I think, equally profound. And then, obviously, Utopia now. And then a couple others that I'll name that I think are absolutely pertinent for you to see. The OA on Netflix. The OA. Undone, which is on Amazon Prime also. And then I think they're all worth watching, like I said, but those are the ones that I think are the most valuable. I think those are the ones that are must watches. And then you have Sense8 on Netflix. And then you have Spartacus, which was just recently taken off Netflix. The Boys, which is an Amazon Prime show also. And that's all I'll name for now. Those are the big ones. The first ones that I named are the most important. But those are the big ones too. And Avatar: The Last Airbender also. It's a kid's cartoon, but it's worth watching. It's a lot shorter, only 20-minute episodes. It's worth it. It's worth it. If you can really just watch it with just a completely unbiased perception, just in terms of what it's framed for, how it's made, because it is made for a fucking 10-year-old audience, but it's the most adult children's show you'll ever see. 100% worth it. But I hope that what I've conveyed here, what I've tried to communicate, was truly valuable for you, and I hope you take my advice and go watch these shows, Utopia, especially right now, at this moment. And I hope that this has given you a better understanding of fiction. I'll go into it more. This is the Thought Train series of episodes, so I'll just be talking about shit. This is just what's on my mind right now. But fiction tends to be on my mind a lot, because fiction has just been such an influence in my life for the better. And I'm talking about the malevolent trash out there also, because that's helped me see just how bad things are. And to be able to see what's being reflected back to humanity through their screen, and how it makes up the overwhelming majority of what is reflected, which is just another testament to the situation, to humanity's state of being, which is just immersed in the most pathetic sludge possible in the situation that we're in right now. I mean, it could obviously be much worse. Believe me. I mean, just look at human history. There have been plenty of worse situations overall, but just for the situation that we're in right now, where we're able to sit in our cozy living rooms with our refrigerators in the other room and our washing machines, and this is what we do with our lives. This is what we do with it. Watching this trash all over our fucking TV screens, our phone screens. This is what we do with our lives. This is what we do with the security that we've created, the comfort level. It's just, in the context of where we're at, it's just the worst it gets. And it's only going to get worse as we move forward. As the context of our reality changes, the worse it's going to get. I mean, you people, you don't even really want to know. Because if you did, It'd be very difficult for you to go back to enjoying your life really at all. Me, I've known for so long that it's just I can still do it, but it's not easy. You know. And this is why I'm doing this now, because this is what I have to offer. I have to offer my insight, the knowledge and the wisdom that comes with it. And I just want to be able to help one fucking person. You know, I obviously want to do more than that, but as long as I can get to one person on a truly meaningful level, then I did what I wanted to do ultimately. Because I was that one person at one time who needed to be able to see with clarity and couldn't at the time. Not how I needed it. And a guy like Mark Passio really, he wasn't telling me anything I didn't already know for the most part. But he gave me what I needed to know that I wasn't fucking insane. Because that's how I felt for a long time, was that there was something wrong with me. And that, you know, there was nobody else out there who felt like I did. And when I found Mark Passio several years ago, I realized finally that I am not alone. And that there are other people who see it, and who see it much more than I did at the time. So that's what I'm here for. I'll be discussing fiction a lot more. But this one was more centered on the Utopia show. And I did want to get into it, you know, the nature of fiction and how it's been weaponized and perverted somewhat. And I think I did that. But yeah, I'll go through more stuff, more shows, more movies. I didn't really go into movies at all. I'll go into some movies. There are a lot of great movies out there. And I'll get into all of that later on. In fact, what I might do is with the more structured Laws of Reality series, I will probably make a few episodes that are solely dedicated to fiction and to specific works where I break it down. And obviously there's going to be all the spoilers. That's not what this was. This was just trying to really enlighten people as to the fact that this show even exists and how it exists, you know, at what time it exists, and what is being conveyed with this existence at the most like fundamental level. That's what I wanted to get across, and it's just because of the nature of it all combined that I felt like I needed to do that. And I just saw it. You know, a lot of these other things I saw a long time ago. This is fresh on my mind, and it's, like I said, it's directly related. It's completely intertwined with what's happening. It's just crazy. Virus narratives engineered for vaccines, for agendas that you don't know about. That's what it's all about. What it really is all about, we can't say for sure. We can't say for sure. I mean, this guy in the show, the Bill Gates guy, like, this guy genuinely believes that what he was doing was the right thing to do for the world and for humanity. I don't know. Bill Gates doesn't really strike me, the real Bill Gates, he doesn't strike me as a guy who gives a fuck about humanity the way that this guy does. Because he does. That's what you got to give him. Whether you agree with his methods or not, he gives a fuck. And he just sees it as the only option. And it doesn't hurt that he benefits from it greatly because he owns the vaccine, etc. And he'll be one of the people who isn't sterilized. So, I mean, that's very convenient. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Whew. Just thinking about it still blows my mind. Like, just the fact that it exists. And the way they lay it all out there, man. They just lay it out there for you. Well, the one thing I will say about the show is that it is heavy on the global warming, left, climate change, humans can destroy the earth, fucking bullshit narrative. But if you can ignore that stuff, it's worth it. And I mean, there's truth to what they're saying. You know, like we are just like I don't know if I made this point earlier or not. We are destroying our environment. I mean, that's just a fact. But like the real like thing about the narrative that is completely nonsense is that us destroying the environment will destroy the earth. Yeah, it's bullshit. The earth will be fine. The earth will endure for as long as the sun isn't a red giant and, you know, gamma rays aren't striking it. The earth will endure till the end. Humanity won't survive. Humanity will kill itself off, which is that's what I'm fine with it. If that's what humanity wants to do, then that's what it deserves. If that's the behavior it's going to demonstrate, then it deserves to be eradicated one way or the other. The earth will be just fine. It'll shake us off like a case of bad fleas, like George Carlin said. It'll make fucking plastic into a new element. I mean, we are poisoning the water. We're killing wildlife, killing ourselves, and destroying the forests and the trees, etc., etc., etc. All of this stuff is happening. But like, oh, the carbon emissions is making the ice caps melt and it's gonna flood the world. No, I mean, this is just a bunch of fucking fear porn. We could not make a footprint so significant to cause such a phenomenon to occur by ourselves. The warming of the globe, climate change, is a completely natural phenomenon. This has been proven, scientifically proven. It's all in the data. Go look at Greg Braden's work. Somebody like that. They've done all the work necessary to prove to you that most of the narrative is nonsense. It doesn't change anything though. That's the thing, you know. It doesn't change that we need to change our behavior and stop killing ourselves and stop poisoning the environment. I mean, it's just completely counterproductive. It doesn't make any sense on any level. So it doesn't change anything, but the mindset that people have is based in mostly propaganda, deceptive propaganda. That's all I'm saying. That needs to be highlighted. And that we need to realize that we're not going to kill the planet. We are going to kill ourselves. We are going to deplete this world of resources. We're going to poison it so heavily that nothing will be able to be consumed. That's what's going to happen inevitably if we continue doing the things we're doing. We're going to kill the planet, folks. And I mean, shit, melt the ice caps, fucking flood the world. We're killing ourselves. The planet will be fine. It's all about humanity. But people want to act like they care so much about the planet. No. People care about themselves. People care about their safety. That's all they care about. They don't care about the fucking planet in and of itself. If they could fucking destroy the planet, pick it clean, bleed it dry, and still be fine, they would, without a doubt. Overpopulation is another thing that's obviously focused on. I didn't really think I had to mention it just because of the whole sterilization narrative. But overpopulation is also something that's very emphasized in the show. And no, we are not overpopulated in the sense that we could not fit easily 50 billion people on this planet and be just fine. It is the way we're going about living our lives that is the problem. It's not the amount of people. 8 billion, 10 billion, it's nothing. You could fit probably 100 billion people on this planet easily if we were living our lives in an optimal way. It's a fact that you could fit the entire global population as it now is on Australia. Give each person a half acre of land and everybody could fit there. Overpopulation is not the problem, folks. So just keep that in mind when you're watching and in general. Sterilizing the population, to me, makes more sense in terms of making sure that we're focused on what we have right now. We already have all the problems in the world to deal with. Bringing more children into the world right now does not really make any sense until we fix what we've fucking done to this place and what we're doing. what we will continue to do. Until we rectify that, I don't see the point in having more babies. But that is what it is. I mean, we could do both. We could fix it and still have a bunch of babies. It's just, from his perspective anyway, that seems to be the only answer, especially in the immediate future, is so that everybody just stops being distracted and consumed by having to take care of 2, 3, 4 children and focus on their own lives and our situation as a collective. That's his mentality. Is he right? Is he wrong? Maybe not. I don't know. But again, the central theme, the message being conveyed, is that people need to wake up and start doing something much drastically different that is toward the direction of symbiotic benefit for all people. That's the message. The methods are another story, and that is, we're not talking about that right now. The real message of that whole narrative is that humanity's being deceived into doing something it has no idea what it's doing. That's the point. And that's the point of the whole show, tied in with that we need to wake up to that and then do something about it on all levels. That's the only answer. That's the only solution. Period. Enlightenment, and then taking that enlightenment and changing our reality with it on all levels. That's it. That's all. That's as simple as it is. In and of itself. It's obviously much easier said than done, hence why someone would consider sterilizing the entire population. Yeah, that's where we're at, and that's what fiction is. And that's this rendition of fiction in relation to this reality that we're currently experiencing right now. Again, I hope that this has really helped somebody, been really beneficial to somebody. I hope that you take what I've said here and really understand it and do something with it. And I will continue to explore this on the mic so that you can have a further and deeper understanding more and more as we go of all of this, because there's so much to it. There's so much out there, and once I start doing the real decoding and dissections and breakdowns of different movies and shows, I'll really hammer it home. This was nothing in comparison to that. This was light work. But thank you, everybody, for listening. Like I said, I don't know exactly what my schedule will be for releasing these or when I'll start doing the more structured Laws of Reality series, but I will let you know. I have enough subscribers on YouTube that I can actually put out a message now to the people who are subscribed to me, so I'll probably use that, when I know more. But please comment any feedback you have for me, or send me a message through email or through the Laws of Reality Instagram. I'm always available to talk, to just discuss anything. But if you have any specific comments or questions in regards to this episode, then yeah, please don't hesitate to comment or send me a message. And even if it's not related, we could just talk. If you just want to talk, that's fine. That's what I'm here to do. That's what I was put on this planet to do, is communicate with people so that they can benefit from it. That's what I'm here for. So don't hesitate. Everybody just hang in there. Keep doing your best to learn and do something with what you learn. That's all you can really do right now. We're very limited in what we were able to do with our time and our abilities and what we know. But we can do something for somebody, for ourselves. There's always somebody we can do something for. And that's the only reason why I do this, because I know that there's somebody that needed to hear it. All right, till next time. Peace.